Continues to isolate Israel, American evangelicals are strong supporters of the Jewish state. But some fear that support could be quietly eroding. CBN's Mark Martin spoke with Mark Tooley, president of the Institute for Religion and Democracy. He says they're taking steps to clarify why Israel should be defended.
Evangelicals are among the strongest supporters of Israel, so why do we need to make the Christian case for the Jewish state?
Well, you're right. Polls show that evangelicals, sometimes even more than American Jews, are the most supportive religious demographic for Israel. But there is a growing unfortunate trend among some evangelicals, especially more elite evangelicals, against Israel, or at least a more neutralist stance towards Israel. So the same arguments that may have worked among, or assumptions that may have been prevalent among evangelicals 20 and 30 years ago no longer prevail, especially among young evangelicals. And so some new arguments need to be put forward to make the case for Israel.
Well, what's behind this shift of evangelical schools and missions agencies away from Israel?
Well, various reasons. Some of it is just a little bit psychological. The great old figures of religious conservatism have largely passed from the scene, who were prominent back in the 70s and 80s. And of course, they were very, very strongly Israel, but controversial. And so the succeeding generation of some evangelical leaders are more reluctant to enter into that controversy and prefer to focus on other issues. Also, there is a trend among many of the evangelical university campuses and in some of the seminaries that we want to strike a new tone. We don't want to be typecast as automatically pro-Israel. We're going to be, for example, a slogan that's popular now is pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, pro-peace, pro-Jesus, which sounds wonderful, but the default result of that kind of slogan is evangelicals are no longer supporting Israel, and America, as a result, becomes less of a reliable ally for Israel.
So what else will be the impact of this shift?
Well, Israel justifiably looks to America as its strongest, biggest, and most important strategic ally in a world that is largely hostile to Israel and tragically hostile to the Jewish people. And a large part of a strong American support for Israel is, of course, the fact that the 25 or 30% of Americans who are in the evangelical tradition tend to be overwhelmingly pro-Israel. So if you can compromise or dilute or neutralize strong traditional evangelical support for Israel, potentially you can begin to shift America in a more neutral or less supportive stance towards Israel, more in the direction of, say, many of the European nations, which would have potentially tragic consequences for Israel and for the overall situation in the Middle East.
Why should Christians continue to support Israel?
Well, prudential arguments would include the fact that Israel is a democracy, it's pro-American, it gives equal rights and equal protection under the law to all people. It's the only country right now in the Middle East that is a safe place for Christians. It's the only country in the Middle East where the Christian population is growing. Those are the prudential arguments that should appeal to people across the board, whether they're Christian or not, if you believe in democracy and freedom and human rights. The theological arguments would include that there is an organic connection between Christianity and Judaism, between Christians and the Jewish people, and there is an organic connection between the Jewish people and the land of their ancestors, and you cannot divorce that connection without diminishing who the Jewish people are and where they have come from.
All right, Mark Tooley, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insights.
Appreciate it.